Stocks closed mixed on Wall Street ahead of the April inflation data due on Wednesday. Meanwhile, as the U.S. gets closer to reaching its statutory debt limit, Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen reiterates that failure to raise the debt ceiling would cause an economic catastrophe and have an adverse impact on the dollar's use, as the reserve currency has second such statement in under a week. Stocks in the Asia-Pacific opened mixed ahead of the release of Chinese trade data for the month of April. The SGX Nifty also indicates a lower start for the Indian market. And crude prices rally with Brent above $75 a barrel as fears of a recession in the United States subside following strong jobs data for the month of April. And at the first meeting of the FSDC since the Union budget, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman asked regulators to ensure financial stability and maintain constant vigil, wants compliance burden to be reduced and calls for a drive to settle unclaimed deposits and claims. Pidilite reports a weak fourth quarter on lower than expected consumer business volume and headwinds in the B2B business, while Mahanagar Gas sees margin expand on the back of price hikes. In key earnings to track today, Lupin is expected to report good numbers on a low base. Also watch for the listing of Mankind Pharma, which was the biggest IPO to hit the street in a year. Hi guys, good morning and welcome to Power Breakfast. I'm Pavitra Parekh. Those are the top headlines that we have for you as we get into this fresh day. There's clearly lots to track, lots in terms of domestic cues, lots that has come through globally as well. So let's start off by talking about the global markets. For Asia, it's looking pretty mixed. You have the Nikkei markets, which are doing perhaps the best right now. It's up 0.7% for the Japanese index. But there are some cuts coming through elsewhere. You also have Shanghai, which is seeing 0.25% in terms of a gain. But Hang Seng, like you can see, is seeing an over 100-point dip right now. Taiwan is down around 0.2%. Actually, for most of the Asian markets, so whether it's Straits, Kospi, all of these are seeing a little bit of a cut come through. Nothing too bad, but around 0.2 to 0.3%. So most Asian markets a little bit lower as we start off the session. We have the SGX Nifty, which will come up for you. It is also indicating that we might get a bit of a lower start. It has moved to the high point of the day. So 33 points lower on the SGX Nifty is what we have for now. But of course, remember, this is after the solid session that we had yesterday. Over almost 200 points in terms of a gain for the Nifty yesterday and over 600 for the Nifty Bank. So after that, we might get a little bit of a weakish start. That's what's happening in Asia. But let's also talk about the US now. We had Wall Street, which ended Tuesday's trading session mixed. So the Dow was down 55 points. The S&P closed absolutely flat and the Nasdaq Composite gained around 20 points at the close. So we have CNBC's Contessa, who's standing by with all of that action from Wall Street.
Major averages finishing the day mixed, with the markets waiting on some key inflation reports due out later this week. The Dow shed more than 50 points. The S&P finished slightly up, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq gained about 0.2%. Oil prices climbing better than 2% today as traders shook off concerns about a U.S. recession. It comes following a strong employment report Friday and as refiners gear up for the summer driving season. Oil prices fell 7% in the United States last week, capping their third week of losses in a row. West Texas crude settled at a little more than $73 a barrel in trading Monday. Disney stock on the rise after Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 kicked off the summer movie season with a $114 million opening. The new Marvel film pushed Universal's Super Mario Bros. Movie to second place, ending its month at the top. Universal is owned by CNBC's parent, Comcast. That's what's happening in the U.S. I'll send it back to you in Mumbai.
All right, that is some important opinion that we're tracking. But with that, it's time for our first short break on the show. We've talked all about, how the global markets are looking. So on the other side, we're going to tell you all of the cues that you should track as we get into this trading session. Stay tuned. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Power Breakfast here on CNBC TV 18. And let's bring in our entire research team to prep you up for this trading session. We have Mangalam joining us as well as Ekta and Surbi to take us through the trade setup this morning. Guys, a very good morning to all of you. Ekta, let me come to you first. Take us through everything we should track. Of course, yesterday was a solid session for us, but take us through everything we should track today.
Thanks for that. Well, yes, yesterday, we did manage to come back from Friday's losses. So the Nifty Sensex ended at 5-month closing highs. We had the markets which did recover from those Friday losses, and FIIs continue to buy into the Indian markets. So they net bought over 2,100 odd crores in yesterday's trading session and have been continuous buys for the past couple of trading sessions. In fact, the DIIs net bought around 245 odd crores as well. So that support continues for our markets. In terms of the global space, there's a lot of cues happening, which you touched upon. But overnight, we also had the German industrial production data, which sank by the most that we've seen in a year, and that resulted in recession fears rising. So the German industrial production fell 3.4% versus estimates of 1.5%. Now we also have the US CPI data, which will be out for April in the US markets on Wednesday, and that's going to give us a better sense in terms of what we can expect from the Fed, especially after the strong employment data that just came out a few days ago. Europe managed to end higher yesterday. US markets ended mixed. Asia is currently mixed, and we have the SGX, which is indicating a bit of a soft start. We had Brent crude, which rose around 2% overnight. Remember, it was down 5% last week. A lot of result reactions, especially from the FMCG space. So the likes of Pidilite, Kansai, Nerolac. We also have Mankind, which is listing today, and a lot of results today to watch out for from the broader markets, especially the likes of Lupin, Apollo Tyres, Castrol, SRF, Nazara Tech, to just name a few.
All right, Ekta, thanks a lot for taking us through all of those cues. In fact, like Ekta was pointing out, it could be a lot about these individual stocks as well, because we got a slew of earnings that came through. Surbi is here with that entire list. Hi, Surbi.
Hi, good morning. Thanks for that. So first on my radar is Aviation Industries. The numbers were amiss on the poll. The revenue came in 1656 crores, EBITDA at 252 crores, and the margins came in 200 basis points lower at 15%. Pidilite, again a miss when you compare it to the poll. The revenue came in at 2689 crores, EBITDA at 459 crores, and margins at 17% versus a poll of 18%. Mahanagar Gas, there was a marginal miss on the revenue, but there was a beat on the EBITDA front. Revenue came at 1610 crores, EBITDA at 390 odd crores, and margins came in at 24% versus a poll of 20%. Kalpataru Power Transmission, the revenue was up 18%, the EBITDA was up nearly 10%, and margins came in at 7%. Nerolac Paints, the revenue was up 12%, the EBITDA came in at 168 crores, and the margins came in at nearly 10%. Apart from this, Mankind Pharma will also be in focus as the company lists today.
All right, that is a long list of stocks. Surbi, thanks a lot for that. We're going to watch for all of these in today's trading session. Finally, it's over to Mangalam, who's looking at cues from the futures and options space. Hi, Mangalam.
Hi, so yesterday was a great day of trade. In fact, on Friday, we lost about 186 points on the Nifty. Yesterday, we went ahead and gained 195 points. And what led the gains was the Nifty Bank. On Friday, remember, it was the Nifty Bank and HDFC Twins in particular, which dragged these indices. The good part is that we had cash market flows to match that as well. Both the FIIs as well as the DIIs were on the buy side in the cash market. So a net inflow of close to around 2350 odd crores coming in. That's not all. The FIIs also bought about 1,307 crores in index futures, and out there they were evenly split between the Nifty as well as the Nifty Bank, and that's a positive, mainly because usually the split is a lot more in favor of Nifty itself. They added about 11,400 longs, covered about 2,000 shorts, and as a result of which their net long exposure has inched higher from 45% to about 51% itself. What was, however, the most heartening fact was the previous trading session, we saw a lot of call writers very active. Now, yesterday they were caught on the wrong side. So we saw short covering in the index calls, and at the same time, they converted to index puts. So 1.4 lakh short puts added in the index options. And out here, we saw short covering in the 18,100 call, 18,200 call, and some purchase in the 18,500 call as well, as people are eyeing higher levels for the Nifty. The important part, however, with the put writers being active at 18,200 and 18,250, the Nifty support, which was earlier at around 18,050 to 18,100, has moved about 100 points higher to 18,150 to about 18,200 itself. So that's an important part. The base for the market keeps moving higher. A couple of things to watch out for in other indices. The Nifty Bank is less than 2% away from its all-time high, so that's something we'll be watching out for. And secondly, it is also the weekly options expiry for Nifty Financial Services, so that's another index and a bunch of stocks that we'll be eyeing.
All right, Mangalam, thanks a lot for running us through all of those cues. But with that, it is time for another short break on the show. When we come back, we're going to shift the focus from equities to commodities and tell you what's going on. Okay, let's bring you some updates on the Go First crisis now. The DGCA has issued a show-cause notice to the cash-strapped airline for its failure to continue operations in a safe and reliable manner. So the aviation regulator has directed Go First to respond within 15 days now. This essentially means that the DGCA will decide whether the airline can continue to have an air operator certificate. And with the latest notice, Go First, which filed for insolvency last week, has been ordered to stop selling tickets immediately. On Monday, that's yesterday, the airline appealing to the NCLT urgently sought bankruptcy protection as multiple lessors have asked for their planes to be deregistered over the past few days. Also note that since last week, several lessors have written to the DGCA requesting to repossess 36 Go First planes. So that is everything that we are tracking and the latest that has come through on Go First. We'll of course keep bringing you the details there as well. But with that, let's also talk about the world of commodities because there's a lot of action there. Manisha is here to fill us in with exactly that. Hi, Manisha.
Hi, thank you so much for that. I'll start with the crude oil prices, where we have seen 2% of gains overnight. And with this, the prices are off the 17-month lows that they hit in the previous week itself. Well, there was an interesting statement from Goldman Sachs suggesting that the crude demand stress and the global supply concerns are overstated and crude prices should see gains. And that's exactly what we also are looking at. What the street will watch out for is the Saudi Aramco earnings that come out this week and the OPEC monthly report that also releases on Thursday. So that is something that you will want to watch out for. In the metal sector, in the meanwhile, we've seen good gains continue. The tin prices are now trading at a 2-month highs. The lithium carbonate also has seen strong gains. Copper has rebounded from a 4-month lows as well. The markets are waiting for the China trade data that comes in today, and the inflation numbers from China and US come in tomorrow.
All right, that is all of the action from the world of commodities. Manisha, thanks a lot for that. But let's also bring you some national news now. We continue to get you updates on the situation in Manipur with regards to the violence, where the state has seen ethnic clashes over the last few days. So the Supreme Court has now directed both the centre and the state to file updated status reports and post pleas for May 17th. Additionally, the Supreme Court has directed the Manipur government and the centre to ensure rehabilitation and other arrangements are all put in place for the victims of the clash. So that is the update coming out of Manipur this morning. With that, let's also quickly take a look at what's going on across Asia once again. We have actually most Asian markets which are in the red. What's holding up and what has only moved higher in the past couple of minutes is the Nikkei market. So that is up around 0.8%. But everything barring the Japanese markets is in the red right now. Hang Seng down 0.6%. So that has slipped a little bit more in the past few minutes. Taiwan seeing a minor cut. Shanghai Straits Kospi all down around 0.2%. And the SGX Nifty is up on your screen. That has actually recovered a little bit, but it's still around 20 points lower on the SGX. Don't forget, this is after the solid session that we saw yesterday. But on that note, we're going to wind down on this edition of Power Breakfast. Thanks for tuning in. We have Bazaar Morning Call up in 2.